In the sun-drenched cul-de-sacs of Sunnyvale Heights, California, life looked like a magazine spread. Identical beige stucco homes with perfectly trimmed hedges lined streets, named after flowers nobody actually planted. The HOA made sure of that. Every blade of grass had to be exactly 2.5 inches tall. God forbid it hit 3. Mailboxes could only be painted in approved sandstone. American flags were permitted only on national holidays. And even then, they had to be taken down by sunset, where you get a $50 fine and a strongly worded letter. And presiding over this beige paradise with the iron fist of a dictator in pastel cardigans was Karen Whitaker, president of the Sunnyvale Heights Homeowners Association for 7 glorious years. Karen didn't just enforce the rules, she was the rules. With her perfectly highlighted blonde bob, pearl necklace that probably cost more than some residents' car payments, and a clipboard that might as well have been a scepter, she patrolled the neighborhood like a shark in Lululemon. As your HOA president, I only want what's best for our property values, she'd say at every meeting, voice dripping with that fake Midwestern sweetness that masked pure venom. The neighbors ate it up. Karen keeps our standards high, they'd whisper at block parties. Without her, this place would turn into a slum. Enter Rachel Ellis, the quiet one in the corner house on Daisy Lane. Rachel drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic that somehow always seemed to be parked at the wrong angle. She worked from home doing some research thing. That's what everyone said. No flashy job. No husband parading around in a Tesla. No kids in private school. Just Rachel, with her modest garden that occasionally had a rogue tomato plant straying from the approved planting zones. The fine started small. $25 for her bird feeder being an eyesore. $75 when her lawn service left one patch a quarter inch too long after the July heat wave. Then came the big one, $150 for unauthorized exterior modifications because she'd installed energy-efficient window film that wasn't on the pre-approved list of 4 shades. Rachel never argued in public. She'd smile politely, write the check, and thank Karen for looking out for the community. But at night, in her home office, she'd add the notices to a growing digital folder labeled documentation. And she'd smile a different kind of smile. The annual Labor Day block party was where the real theater happened. Neighbors gathered around Karen like she was the second coming. Karen, honey, the new flower beds by the entrance are just divine. Mrs. Patterson from number 12 would gush. You have such vision. Karen would preen, adjusting her visor. Well, it wasn't cheap, but quality costs money. We can't have our property values slipping because someone decides to plant whatever they want. Her eyes would slide over to Rachel, who was quietly sipping iced tea by the punch bowl. Speaking of which, Rachel dear, how's that little project of yours going? Still doing the research thing in your spare time? Rachel would nod. It's going well. Karen, thanks for asking. Mark Ellison, the real estate broker who always had the loudest laugh, chimed in. Rachel's very smart, he'd say with that condescending chuckle. Academic types. You know, great at theories, not so much at real-world stuff like maintaining standards. Good thing we have Karen here to keep everything shipshape. Everyone would laugh. Rachel would smile and cut her slice of watermelon into precise little cubes. Nobody noticed how her eyes didn't quite match the smile. What they didn't know was that Rachel Ellis wasn't just any researcher. That think tank job she mentioned in passing, it was a cover. Her real work involved algorithms that could predict market shifts before most Wall Street hotshots finished their lattes. She'd built a quant trading operation that managed hundreds of millions. The modest house, strategic. The old Civic, paid cash and reliable. Her net worth? Let's just say the HOA fines were less than her weekly coffee budget. But she kept it hidden. Let them underestimate her. Let Karen strut. The first cracks appeared in late September. The community pool, That crown jewel Karen had pushed for a $180,000 upgrade 2 years ago with her cousin's construction company was showing structural issues. Leaks, cracks, the reserve fund that was supposed to cover emergencies, strangely depleted. Karen blamed unexpected inflation and those damn supply chain problems. At the emergency board meeting, Karen stood at the podium in her signature power blazer. Friends, these are challenging times, but together we'll rise to the occasion. I'm proposing a special assessment of $2,500 per household to cover the repairs. It's the responsible thing to do. Murmurs rippled through the room. Rachel sat in the back row, taking meticulous notes. She raised her hand calmly. Karen, according to the bylaws, Section 4.2, major expenditures over $50,000 require a full member vote and transparent bidding process. Has that been done? Karen's smile tightened like a rubber band about to snap. Rachel, always with the technicalities. This is an emergency. We don't have time for your little academic nitpicking. The board is already approved moving forward. The neighbors nodded along. Let Karen handle it, someone whispered loudly. She knows what she's doing. Rachel simply nodded and sat back down. But inside, she was already running the numbers. The bids Karen's cousin submitted were inflated by at least 40%. The reserve fund had mysteriously funded several board retreats in Napa Valley. Rachel had the receipts. She'd been watching, waiting. The storm was coming. And when it hit, Karen Whitaker was going to learn that the quiet woman in the old Honda wasn't struggling at all. She was preparing to buy the whole damn board. Then came the storm. Not just any storm. The kind meteorologists call a 100-year event, but homeowners associations call why us. Lord, torrential rain battered Sunnyvale Heights for 3 days straight. Drainage systems that Karen had repeatedly assured everyone were perfectly adequate failed spectacularly. Water flooded the community pool house, undermined the main road leading to the entrance, and turned the beloved common park into a swamp. Damage estimates came in at over $500,000. The HOA Reserve Fund? It was supposed to have $200,000 socked away for exactly this kind of emergency. Instead, it had $37,000 and change. Turns out a significant portion of those community enhancement funds had gone toward Karen's various initiatives, like the President's Leadership Summit in Napa Valley, or the new golf cart for board inspections that somehow ended up parked in Karen's driveway most weekends. The board called an emergency meeting. The community center was packed. People were angry, scared, and looking for someone to blame. Karen took the stage in her signature pastel blazer, looking every bit the concerned leader. This is a challenging time for all of us, she began, voice dripping with practiced sympathy. But as your president, I have a plan. We need to pass a special assessment of $3,000 per household. It's the only responsible way forward if we want to maintain our standards. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. $3,000 was a lot for some families. Karen raised her hands. I know it's difficult, but think of the property values. We can't let a few shortcuts ruin what we've built. Her eyes landed on Rachel, sitting in her usual spot near the back. Some residents might find this harder than others. Of course, those who haven't been pulling their weight or maintaining their own properties properly. The implication was crystal clear. Rachel felt the stares turn toward her. Karen continued, warming to her favorite subject. We've all seen examples of homeowners who treat the covenants like suggestions, driving vehicles that don't reflect our community's image, neglecting curb appeal. It all adds up. And now, when we need unity, those same individuals expect the rest of us to carry them. A few of Karen's loyalists nodded vigorously. One woman whispered loudly enough for half the room to hear. It's people like that Rachel who drag us all down. Rachel didn't flinch. She simply raised her hand calmly. Karen, before we vote, could we see a detailed breakdown of the reserve fund expenditures over the last 2 years? It might help everyone understand how he got here. The room went quiet. Karen's smile tightened like a rubber band about to snap. That's hardly necessary at this stage. Rachel, the board has already reviewed the numbers. We need action, not more academic questioning. Just a simple report, Rachel said mildly. Transparency builds trust. Isn't that what you always say? Karen laughed, but sounded forced. Some people have the luxury of sitting in their home offices theorizing about finances. The rest of us have been out here actually running things. Real-world experience matters. The meeting ended with the assessment passed by a narrow margin. Residents grumbled as they left. Karen caught Rachel at the door. I hope you're not planning to make this difficult. Dear, some people in your situation might need to consider if this community is still the right fit. Rachel smiled that small, dangerous smile. Oh, I'm not going anywhere. Karen, in fact, I'm more committed than ever. What Karen didn't know was that Rachel had already pulled the full financials weeks earlier through a contact on the accounting firm. The mismanagement was worse than anyone suspected. Creative bookkeeping, questionable vendor contracts that benefited Karen's friends. Rachel had been running the numbers through her own models. The HOA was heading for disaster. But Rachel wasn't going to let it fail. Not when she had the perfect vehicle to step in. Her firm, RE Capital, had bailed out 3 other struggling associations in the last 18 months. Each time, she'd restructured operations, cut waste, and turned them profitable. This time would be no different. Except this time, the satisfaction would be personal. Back in her home office that night, Rachel opened her laptop and began drafting the term sheet. $500,000 in bridge financing. In exchange, significant oversight rights and 3 advisory seats that would effectively give her control over major decisions. Karen would hate it, which made it perfect. The game had just changed. Rachel Ellis wasn't the struggling academic anymore. She was about to become the new sheriff in town. And Karen Whitaker had no idea the quiet woman she'd spent years tormenting was about to rewrite every rule in the book. Word of the special assessment spread like wildfire through Sunnyvale Heights. Residents grumbled in driveways and over backyard fences, clutching the notices like eviction papers. Karen, sensing the mutiny brewing, doubled down on her favorite tactic, divide and conquer. She started a quiet campaign at the next neighborhood picnic, clipboard in hand, as always, smiling that fake concerned smile while her eyes scanned for weakness. Some people just don't pull their weight, she announced loudly enough for the potato salad line to hear, staring straight at Rachel across the folding table. Driving that old car, ignoring curb appeal, treating rules like suggestions. And now, when the community needs unity, they expect the rest of us to foot the bill. It's not fair, is it? The crowd chuckled nervously. Mark Ellison slapped his knee. Karen's right. Real community members sacrifice. Not everyone has the stomach for it. Rachel sipped her lemonade, face calm as still water. Inside, she tallied the irony. The same woman who'd blown reserve funds on Napa wine tastings was lecturing about sacrifice. That night, Rachel's phone buzzed. It was James, her operations director at RE Capital. We've been approached. Evergreen Meadows HOA needs $500,000 fast. Reserves are toast. They're desperate. 3 term sheets fell through. They're offering equity-like oversight and board seats to whoever writes the check. Rachel pulled up the spreadsheets she'd been quietly building for months. Burn rate insane. Customer wait. Resident. Retention tanking because of Karen's petty fines driving people crazy. Revenue from dues flat, while expenses ballooned on leadership events that were basically Karen's personal parties. Classic mismanagement. The product, the neighborhood itself, was solid. The market opportunity, stable property values, was real. The problem was execution and financial discipline. Fixable. Take the deal. Rachel instructed. Structure it for operational oversight on anything over $10,000. Monthly board access. Full transparency on metrics. No more optimistic interpretations of the books. James whistled low. You're taking control of your neighborhood's HOA Karen's going to lose it when she figures out it's you. Rachel smiled in the glow of her monitor. Let be a surprise. Send the term sheet Friday. They have until Monday. Meanwhile, Karen's harassment escalated with delicious absurdity. A new $300 fine landed in Rachel's mailbox for visual clutter, her home office window visible from the street with a laptop on the desk. It's about keeping standards high during tough times. Dear, the email read, complete with a winking emoji. At the next block party, Karen cornered her again. I hear you're still researching while the rest of us handle real pressure. Academia must be nice, no risk. Just papers nobody reads. Must be comfortable. Rachel cut her burger into precise pieces. It has its advantages. Karen laughed, voice laced with condescension. I couldn't do it. I need the excitement, the challenge, the high stakes. But I respect that some people prefer safety. The neighbors laughed along. Pitying looks thrown Rachel's way. Nobody asked follow-up questions about her work. Nobody wondered why she seemed unfazed by the constant dismissal. Rachel ate quietly. What they didn't see was the term sheet already drafted and ready. RE Capital would wire the money Tuesday. By Wednesday, she'd have full visibility into every expense. The books were cooked slightly, not fraud, but aggressively optimistic. Actual compliance issues were worse than reported. Contracts at risk of cancellation. She scheduled the first oversight call for Thursday. Karen would show up confident, swagger intact. Rachel would let her. For now, the escalation was building to a beautiful breaking point. Karen thought she was the expert. Rachel was about to prove otherwise in the most undeniable way possible. The special emergency board meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. in the community clubhouse, the same sterile room where Karen had spent years patting herself on the back. Rachel had flown in the night before, staying in a nondescript hotel near the highway. No one in Sunnyvale Heights knew. She swapped her usual casual jeans for a tailored navy suit she'd never worn around the neighbors. The kind that whispered money without screaming it. Briefcase in hand, not the cheap one from Target, but a sleek leather number that cost more than most residents' monthly HOA dues. The room smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Karen sat at the head of the long table in her power pastel, flanked by her loyal board minions, the retired accountant who never questioned anything and the realtor who owed her favors. A few other homeowners had shown up, faces grim from the proposed $2,500 special assessment notices that had arrived like eviction threats. Karen was mid-rant when Rachel slipped in the back door. This is exactly why we need strong leadership. Some people just don't understand the real costs of maintaining standards. They're too busy with their little academic hobbies to grasp business realities. Rachel took a seat at the far end of the table. Karen's eyes flicked over, did double take, then narrowed. Rachel, this is a board meeting. Residents can observe but not. Well, you know how it works. I'm not here as a resident today, Rachel said calmly, opening her briefcase. She slid copies of documents across the polished wood. I'm here representing RE Capital, the firm providing the bridge financing to save the HOA from insolvency. The room went dead silent. Karen's pearl necklace seemed to tighten around her throat. What are you talking about? The financing is coming from a sophisticated investment group. Not someone who can't even keep her bird feeder compliant. Rachel smiled that small, precise smile. RE Capital is me. I'm the founder. We've been monitoring the HOA's financials for some time. Your reserve fund depletion, the inflated contracts with certain family members, the unnecessary retreats, it's all here in black and white. One of the board members picked up the packet, flipping pages with dawning horror. This checks out. The term sheet we received anonymously. You're behind a $500,000 lifeline. Correct. And per the agreement, RE Capital gets oversight rights on all expenditures over $5,000 and 3 board seats, with voting power on restructuring decisions. Combined with the other concerned members, we now control the major votes. Karen's face cycled through several unflattering shades of red. This is ridiculous. You're that quiet little researcher who drives the beater car. How could you possibly? This must be some kind of joke or revenge plot because I enforce the rules. Rachel slid over more papers, her credentials, fund performance summaries showing consistent high returns, net worth disclosures that made eyes widen around the table. My research job is a hobby. Last year, my compensation from RE Capital was north of $47 million. The think tank covers the fun part. The HOA fines? I could pay them with one good trade before breakfast. The silence was so complete you could hear the air conditioning hum like a guilty confession. Karen laughed, a brittle, unhinged sound. You expect us to believe you built some secret empire while living in that tiny house, while I was out here actually working to protect everyone's property values. This is absurd. Absurd is paying your cousin's company 40% above market for pool repairs that failed within 18 months, Rachel replied evenly, clicking to her presentation on the projector. Slide after slide of charts. Receipts. Bylaw violations by the board itself. Absurd is spending reserve funds on Napa wine tastings while the community infrastructure crumbles. I'm not here for revenge. Karen, though I have to admit, watching you call me the academic who doesn't understand real-world pressure for years while I quietly managed hundreds of millions has a certain irony. She walked them through the restructuring plan for 90 minutes. Cut the landscaping contract that was padding Karen's friends' pockets. Enforce actual competitive bidding. Roll back some of the most ridiculous aesthetic rules that weren't increasing property values, like the solar panel ban that was now illegal anyway under state law. Implement real financial transparency so residents knew where their money went. Every objection Karen raised. Rachel had data, case law precedents, and comparable HOA turnarounds. Your culture of standards has become a culture of waste and ego, Rachel stated. Spending money to look successful instead of being successful. Classic mistake, but fixable. You're destroying everything I've built. Karen finally exploded, standing up so fast her chair scraped like nails on a chalkboard. The neighbors respect me. They need me. You can't just waltz in here with your secret money and take over like some hedge fund vulture. Actually, the accountant board member said quietly, reviewing the numbers. Her projections show we can avoid the special assessment entirely and stabilize within 9 months. This is sound, painful but necessary. Karen's head whipped around. You're siding with her? After everything I've done for this community, I'm siding with not bankrupting the HOA, he replied, and not going to jail for the financial irregularities she's documented. The vote was swift. 4 in favor of the restructuring plan, 1 against. Karen's world cracked right there in the beige clubhouse. As Rachel packed her things, Karen hissed across the table, "They'll never accept this. The neighborhood knows who the real leader is. You'll be the villain." Rachel paused at the door. "They thought the same about me for years. Funny how quickly narratives change when the numbers don't lie. We'll have monthly oversight meetings. Full transparency. No more shadows." She walked out into the California sun, leaving the board to pick up the pieces of Karen's shattered empire. The explosion had finally come, and it tasted like sweet, overdue justice. The news traveled faster than a new fine notice. Within days, whispers turned to open gossip at every mailbox and backyard fence. Rachel Ellis, the quiet one with the old Honda, She's the investor who saved us. Neighbors who'd nodded along to Karen's mockery for years suddenly couldn't stop staring. The block party the following weekend was spectacular in its awkwardness. Rachel arrived in her usual modest clothes, driving the Civic, looking exactly as she always had. But the energy in the air had flipped completely. Karen looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Her clipboard was noticeably absent. Mark Ellison couldn't meet Rachel's eyes. Mrs. Patterson kept trying to start conversations and then trailing off. The same group who'd laughed at the academic now stared like she'd grown a second head. They sat down to grill burgers and potato salad. Nobody knew what to say. Finally, Karen cleared her throat, voice cracking. Rachel, we heard about your involvement with the HOA Capital. Is it true you're the one behind the bridge funding? I'm the lead investor. Yes, Rachel said evenly. My firm manages the turnaround. But how? Karen sputtered. Where would you get that kind of money? You live modestly. You drive that car. You do research. Rachel sipped her drink. I earned it through RE Capital. I've been running it for 8 years. The think tank job is a hobby. My personal net worth is north of $150 million. The sound Karen made wasn't quite a gasp. This doesn't make sense. We all thought you were struggling. We offered to help with your fines once. Rachel met her eyes. You spent 8 years telling me I didn't understand community standards, that I was hiding in my academic world, that I'd chosen the safe path. You never once considered I might be more successful than your whole board combined. You wouldn't have believed me anyway. Silence hung heavy. Mark finally spoke. How did you learn to do this? I taught myself, built the algorithms, tested them, turned my research into actual strategies, worked insane hours while everyone assumed I was wasting time. You build an environment where spending money equaled success, where fundamentals didn't matter because you could always raise more assessments. Karen's jaw tightened. You're enjoying this. I'm not enjoying anything. I'm sitting here where everyone realizes they were wrong for 8 years. The company, the HOA, is healthier now. Burn rate down 37%. We're tracking toward stability by next quarter. Morale is actually better because people have real plans instead of just spending until we run out. The board had voted her restructuring plan through. Karen's perks were gone. No more golf cart. No more selective enforcement. Real competitive bids. Reasonable rules that actually protected values instead of stroking egos. What happens now? Mrs. Patterson asked quietly. Now, nothing changes for most of you. I'll continue running my fund, overseeing the HOA as investor, and living my life. The community will be profitable and stable. Everyone wins except egos. Karen stared at the table. Her perfect confidence shattered. You're my neighbor. You weren't supposed to be better at this than me. Better is subjective. You're an excellent rule enforcer with great instincts for aesthetics. You're just terrible at financial management. Those are different skill sets. Mark nodded slowly. She's right. We've been burning money on things that don't drive value. This plan is aggressive but sound. Karen looked up, voice small. Does everyone know about your fund? Your money? Nobody did until now. Whether you tell them is up to you. It's all verifiable. The party continued in painful silence. People ate, made small talk, avoided the elephant. The entire neighborhood hierarchy had inverted. As Rachel prepared to leave, Karen pulled her aside. Rachel, I owe you an apology. A real one. I dismissed your intelligence, your capabilities. I assumed you were the unsuccessful one. I was completely wrong. Rachel considered it. You spent years telling me my work didn't matter, that I'd chosen the safe path. Those weren't casual comments. They shaped how this whole community saw me. I know. Can you forgive me? I don't need your validation anymore. I spent years desperate for it, working insane hours partly to prove I was worth noticing. But I don't need it now. I know what I've built. Your opinion doesn't change that. Karen winced. What do you need? Honestly, stop comparing residents. Accept that quiet success is valid. Actually ask about people's lives instead of assuming. And acknowledge your assumptions were harmful. I can do that. I will. We'll see. Rachel drove home that night thinking about validation, success, and the particular pain of being underestimated by people who should know better. 3 months later, the HOA hit stability. Monthly expenses manageable. Repairs complete without special assessments. Karen stepped down quietly. Rachel's oversight ensured fair rules. No more absurd fines for bird feeders, but real protections that actually raise property values. At the next picnic, people asked about her work with genuine interest. Mark raised his glass. To Rachel, who saved our community when we were too stupid and proud to save it ourselves. Whose proven quiet success is just as valid. Who's taught us we don't know everything. Everyone drank. Rachel smiled, accepted the recognition, and thought about the years of dismissal that led here. Leave standards to the experts. Karen had said. Turn out Rachel was the expert. She'd always been the expert. They'd just been too convinced of their narrative to see it. Her phone buzzed during dessert, a routine trade alert for a multi-million-dollar position. The number hung in the air, more than the entire bridge round. Just routine for her. The woman they'd told she didn't understand community now controlled its future. That's not revenge. That's the inevitable result of underestimating someone long enough that they build an empire in the shadows while you're busy congratulating yourself. She could have let it fail, but she didn't, because the community was good, the residents talented, the opportunity real, and despite everything, they were still neighbors. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's succeeding so completely everyone has to acknowledge they were wrong. It's being the expert they told you to defer to. It's holding the power they never thought you'd attain. Rachel texted back, maintain all positions. No changes. Then set her phone down and enjoyed her dessert. That's what experts do. We make decisions calmly, manage power responsibly, and don't need to prove anything anymore. The proof is in the portfolio, and hers spoke for itself.